You've been told your intelligence is fixed, that you're either quick or you're not. Either you get it or you don't. And the quiet tragedy isn't that you believed it, it's that you started making decisions based on it. You stopped attempting certain things. You called it not being wired that way. But what if the ceiling you've been living under was never real? And what if the people history calls geniuses weren't born different, but trained differently? Here's what actually happens. You sit with something hard, a concept, a problem, a skill, and the discomfort arrives almost immediately. That slow, foggy feeling of not understanding. And your brain, trying to protect you, interprets that feeling as a verdict. You're not smart enough for this. So you reach for something easier, a shorter video, a summary, a simpler path. And it feels productive. You consumed something, you moved on, but nothing actually changed in your mind. Over time, this pattern compounds. You start identifying as someone who is not a certain type of thinker, not analytical, not creative, not quick. And identity is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, because once you believe something about yourself, your brain begins selecting evidence that confirms it. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. You don't just think you're not that smart, you start seeing proof everywhere. Every moment of confusion becomes evidence. Every struggle becomes confirmation. And the real loss isn't confidence, it's all the thinking you stopped doing before it had a chance to make you sharper. Before we go further, I want to offer you something that isn't motivation. It's just biology. The belief that intelligence is a fixed number, inherited, immovable, already decided, was the dominant scientific view for most of the 20th century. It shaped how schools were built, how children were sorted, how you were evaluated. But that model has been quietly dismantled by decades of neuroscience research. The brain you have at 30 is not the brain you were handed at birth. It has been reshaped constantly by every experience you've had, every skill you've struggled through, every idea you've sat with long enough to understand. The question was never whether your brain could grow, it was whether anyone taught you how to grow it deliberately. Here's what's actually happening inside your skull. Your brain is made of approximately 86 billion neurons, but intelligence isn't about neuron count. It's about connectivity, how efficiently signals travel between regions, how quickly your brain can retrieve, combine, and apply what it knows. And here's the part that changes everything. Those connections are not static. Every time you engage in effortful thinking, not passive reading, not rewatching, but genuine, uncomfortable cognitive struggle, your brain produces a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Neuroscientists sometimes call it fertilizer for the brain. It stimulates the growth of new neural connections and strengthens existing ones. The harder you think, the more of it your brain releases. Here's the mental model to hold. Think of your intelligence as a root system, not a tree. Most people look at the tree, the visible output, the test score, the quick answer, and assume it was always that tall. But what they can't see is the root system underneath, built quietly, built slowly, through years of difficulty nobody watched. Every genius in history, every person whose mind we admire, had a root system built through specific habits, not talent, not luck, habits that triggered exactly this neurological response. And that's what we're going to talk about now. 5 habits, grounded in neuroscience, not productivity advice, cognitive architecture. Habit 1, think without input. Most people believe intelligence grows through consumption, more content, more information, more input. Neuroscience shows the opposite. When external input is removed, your brain activates what researchers call the default mode network, a system responsible for abstract reasoning, creative synthesis, and long-term insight. This is the network Einstein used during his famous thought experiments, not calculating, but imagining, walking alone, no notes, no phone, just the mind working on itself. Modern research confirms that people who regularly practice undistracted thinking score significantly higher in fluid intelligence, the ability to reason through problems they've never seen before. In practice, take a 20-minute walk with no audio, no input. Sit with one question you haven't resolved yet. The discomfort you feel in those first 10 minutes is not boredom. It's your default mode network activating. Stay in it.
Habit 2, struggle before you seek answers. Psychologists call it productive struggle, and it is one of the most well-documented mechanisms of deep learning in cognitive science. When your brain attempts a problem, fails, adjusts, and tries again, it activates deeper neural encoding than any explanation ever could. Benjamin Franklin understood this intuitively. He would read an essay, set it aside, then attempt to reconstruct it entirely from memory. Only after struggling would he compare his version to the original. What he didn't know, but we now do, is that each retrieval attempt physically strengthens the neural pathway associated with that knowledge. The brain doesn't just store what it struggles through, it prioritizes it. In practice, before watching a tutorial or asking for help, write your best attempt at the answer, even if it's wrong, especially if it's wrong. Struggle is not evidence of low intelligence. It is the mechanism that builds it. Habit 3, write to think, not to record. Research from Princeton and UCLA found that people who write by hand develop significantly deeper conceptual understanding than those who type or passively read. The reason is structural. Writing forces your brain to slow down, compress, reorganize, and reconstruct an idea in your own language. And that process, that translation from vague to precise, is where real understanding forms. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks weren't organized. They were full of questions, contradictions, half-finished diagrams. He wasn't recording what he knew, he was using writing to discover what he thought. In practice, keep writing for what he thought. In practice, keep a thinking journal, not a diary, not a task list. One prompt daily. What idea am I still not sure I fully understand? Write toward the confusion. That's where the growth is. Habit 4, learn across domains deliberately. Cognitive scientists call it transfer intelligence, the ability to apply a concept learned in one domain to a completely different context. It is one of the strongest predictors of fluid intelligence, and it only develops in one way, by deliberately exposing your brain to ideas outside its comfort zone. Charlie Munger, one of the sharpest strategic minds of the last century, called this building a latticework of mental models. Physics teaches you cause and effect. Biology teaches you adaptation. Economics teaches you incentives. When these frameworks begin connecting inside your mind, your thinking stops being linear and starts becoming genuinely flexible. In practice, once a week, spend 30 minutes learning one concept from a field you don't work in. Not deeply, conceptually. Your brain becomes more intelligent not by going deeper into one tunnel, but by building bridges between many. Habit 5, protect cognitive recovery like a resource. Here is the habit most people skip because it doesn't look like work. Charles Darwin worked 4 to 5 focused hours per day. The rest was walking, resting, and reflecting. That wasn't laziness. That was neuroscience before neuroscience had a name. Your brain consolidates learning, strengthens neural connections, and clears metabolic waste, primarily during rest and deep sleep. Chronic sleep deprivation measurably damages the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for reasoning, decision-making, and abstract thought. You cannot think your way to a sharper mind while running it into the ground. In practice, treat sleep as cognitive training. Protect one period of genuine mental rest each day. No input, no productivity. Boredom is not weakness. It is your brain consolidating everything it learned. Here's the model to carry with you. Intelligence is a root system. It grows underground, out of sight, through difficulty and struggle and patient return. The 5 habits we discussed, thinking without input, struggling before seeking answers, writing to clarify, learning across domains, and protecting recovery, none of them feel like becoming smarter in the moment. They feel slow, uncomfortable, unglamorous. But that discomfort is BDNF releasing. That friction is new pathways forming. That confusion is the mind reorganizing itself at a level deeper than you can consciously observe. The geniuses weren't different from you. They just stopped interpreting the discomfort as a warning and started recognizing it as a signal. You may have spent years believing that your mind had already decided what it was, that the ceiling was structural, that the gap between you and the people you admire was genetic, inherited, permanent. It isn't. The ceiling was always made of old beliefs, not biology. The root system is still growing. It was growing the moment you started questioning what you were told about your own mind. And every time you sit with difficulty instead of escaping it, every time you choose the struggle over the comfortable shortcut, you are not just learning something new.
You are becoming someone whose mind works differently than it did before. Quietly. Slowly. The way all real things grow.